and Superboy.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to The Krypton Report.
And you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
And bird! And a plane! And Supergirl!
Hey everybody, just letting you know this episode is actually split into two parts because it was so long and we figured it'd give you a better chance to enjoy. Welcome to the Krypton Report. It is myself, Tyler, the Superman of Blue. I am here with my esteemed colleague and man of many talents, James, the Superman of Red.
President accounted for.
And this is going to be a long haul, so we had to call in the Batman, Mr. Bryan Peters. Hello, Bryan.
Hello, boys and girls.
Hiya, boys and girls. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
So, today, for like 2 years now, James and I have wanted to, maybe even longer, I don't know, do Justice League War as a review, and we just couldn't find the time on the schedule. And with the upcoming release of Justice League Dark Apokolips War, which is a mouthful to say, we have decided to look back.
I think you said it wrong. It's Justice League Dark Apokolips War.
What did I say?
You said Justice League Dark Apokolips War.
Justice League.
Just
War,
the
Dark.
Justice League Dark Apokolips War.
There you go. I think you put a pause. You put a pause between Justice League and Dark, so it sounded like the subtitle was Dark Apokolips War.
Oh, that's the Dark Apokolips, opposed to the bright Apocalypse War.
Right.
Maybe he's giving a William Shatner review.
Oh, that would take
Dark
forever.
Apocalypse
But
War.
The rumor on the street is that Apokolips War is the culmination of all the continuity, interconnected animated film universe. We don't have confirmation, but I've read it a couple places, and it definitely feels like it's building up to be that type of event. So, what we've decided to do is we've gone back and watched all 14 films, with Apokolips War being technically number 15, which doesn't release. It hits digital on the 5th and physical on the 21st. So what we've done is we've reviewed these films, we've watched these films, and we're going to talk a little bit about them and how they play into the overall connective story. Now I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown if you're like, what films are we talking about? Well, here we go. Justice League Flashpoint. Justice League War. Well, technically it's Justice League the Flashpoint Paradox.
Yes.
Justice League War. Son of Batman. Justice League Thrones of Atlantis. Batman vs. Robin. Batman Bad Blood. Justice League vs. Teen Titans. Justice League Dark. Teen Titans The Judas Contract. Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. Death of Superman. Reign of the Supermen. Batman Hush. And Wonder Woman Bloodlines. All right. Now, fellas, some quick backstory before we get into this. Is that Justice League Flashpoint ties into this, and we won't spend a whole lot of time on that film because it really, much like the book, it's the last section of that film that really plays the most part, but the voice cast is completely different for Flashpoint. And we won't dig into it too much, but it's just something to be noted. Because there's only like one character that matters, and we'll get there. But
yeah, it's kind of like the end of the stuff that came before and the beginning of the new continuity.
Because the continuity basically was like using the New 52. The New 52 launched in 2011, and this film series launched basically at the end of 2013.
Yeah, right after Bruce Timm stepped down.
Pretty much. So, are we ready, boys? Now, have y'all...
Either.
Before we get started, we're going to do that a little bit different. I want you to name your number one and your least favorite film. I tried to rank them all, but I figured it was too hard. This many movies, it was really difficult to rank them all. So we're going to go around real quick, say what your favorite is and your least favorite. All right, we're going to start with Bryan. Go ahead, favorite.
Man, this was really hard. I really like a lot of them. Okay, my least favorite was Bad Blood.
Okay.
My favorite, I'm kind of torn between Justice League War and Judas Contract. I kind of go back and forth here.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm probably gonna have to say Judas Contract.
Okay. I'll just say that
Judas Contract is the better movie. That's for sure. Between those,
James, what's your favorite and least favorite?
my favorite is The Death of Superman. And I mean, I really don't have. I mean, I guess I do have a least favorite. Which might have to be Son of Batman.
Okay. So my favorite is Death of Superman. My least favorite is Wonder Woman Bloodlines. And some of these, they're all by marginal things. And we'll get into it. I wanted to do this up front first. So as we get into the discussions, we can kind of pinpoint things. I will say that when I originally was trying to rank them, Justice League War was high. But as I rewatched a lot of them, I realized there's certain things I didn't like about Justice League War. As much as I really thrived and liked the other one. One being that Justice League War has a voice cast that a majority of the cast is changed out by the second film. Our Superman, Wonder Woman, and Hal Jordan all change by the next film, which is interesting when you think about it. So
yeah, Alan Tudyk is Superman, which I mean he did a good job, but he usually doesn't play a role quite like Superman. He's definitely a lot more flamboyant, a la the Harley Quinn animated series, Joker and Clayface, and
Mr.
a number
Nobody
of others
on Doom Patrol,
and Mr. Nobody on Doom Patrol.
And then we had Michelle Monaghan as Wonder Woman, which I liked. And then we had someone I'm not super familiar with as Green Lantern was Justin Kirk. But of course he was replaced by Nathan Fillion, who had previously voiced Green Lantern in the Emerald Knights. And he was also in...
Fillion is a superior choice.
Yes, he is.
For sure. So, we also had a difference in Stephen Blum as Darkseid.
We'll get there. Because there's a lot of little ones that change. Like supporting characters, like Darkseid. You're absolutely right. Stephen Blum was Darkseid in this, and then when he shows up again, he's Tony Todd.
The Candyman himself.
And in this one, we also have, hold on, it's in my notes. As Steve Trevor, we have George Newbern, who was actually in War and Thrones of Atlantis, but it's replaced by the time we get to Bloodlines. So a lot of these characters are in the earlier
Talk
films.
Talk about a demotion from Superman to Steve Trevor.
I mean, yeah. But we're going to get into it. Okay, so kicking off the beginning of our conversation, we have 2013 Justice League Flashpoint Paradox, which I didn't put a lot of notes in here, but this film, the animation is different. Okay? It's not the animation that we'll come to know as the continuity, but the third act of the film, when Bruce kills Thawne and Barry runs back in time, when he gets back, it bursts the New 52. Just like in the comic, which brings us to Justice League War. Justice League War being based off the Jeff Johns, Jim Lee Justice League origin from the New 52.
Yes, the first trade, the first 6 issues of Justice League New 52.
Which Justice League War came out in 2014. And some of my notes here state that we actually, in Star Labs, we meet Dr. T.O. Morrow. I don't know if you guys caught that.
Yes, it did.
We get the Darkseid is extremely a massive figure, like just like in the book, like he is huge, like he is a behemoth. Usually Darkseid's bigger, but this is like epically scaled Darkseid. We have all the Shazam kids and their one and only appearance, just the Foster family.
Unfortunately.
The whole team, like much like in the New 52 book, and I know, James, that you were reading New 52 Superman, and I've started rereading New 52 Superman and stuff. There is a lot of just angst, a little bit more anger and aggression.
Well, the New 52 Superman, as I'll plan on discussing with Connor over there on The Last Sons. He comes up a little differently, His parents die while he's in high school, and both of them do.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of on his own when he's coming up, and the world's different in the New 52, as Superman in Superman Lois and Clark points out, that the world they live in is different. It's more like fearful, mm-hmm. and more cynical and untrusting of its heroes.
I would say
that all plays a part.
I would say the Superman in the New 52 isn't a whole person. It's like something's missing, like a part of him is missing.
Kind of makes you think about Superman, 2 parts of Superman, like a red and a blue coming together, or, being reborn.
But just looking at it from the film point of view, all that is in this movie. It's a little bit more, I want to say, like, it is PG-13. I want to say, I have to look back at all of them, but, this is when they're getting more into the PG-13 animated films. I'm trying to look real quick. No, the other ones were already PG-13, but this one just feels like it earns its PG-13. Because I'm looking at some of them here. Some of them were PG.
Are we
PG.
Are we talking War, or are we talking Flashpoint Paradox at this point right now?
We're in War. We've already left the Flashpoint Paradox.
Okay, because we don't. Okay, we only touched on it. All right.
So, there is a remark. This is where it gets confusing. Okay, now hold this in your mind. There is a line about 5 years in stated in Justice League War. There is a reference to 5 years.
Is there?
And that's what I said. This is where it gets a little confusing.
Well, because in the beginning of Justice League in the New 52, that takes place about 5 years after the emergence of like the superheroes. they kind of, in the New 52, a lot of them kind of come out around the same time.
Mm-hmm. The New 52,
and the Justice League Origins actually takes place 5 years in it. So even though it's, it starts at 1 and it was at the same time at the beginning of everything else, it actually takes place in the future beyond all of them, at least for a time.
Right. But I'm just saying, we're looking at the continuity of these films because they start with the idea of New 52, but then they start branching. Because then they start pulling in old stories. But that 5-year mark is important when we get to the last film in the series.
Which I think is great. Well, yeah. Which I think is great, the way that they have pulled in these stories. They created a New 52 universe, but the universe encapsulates the entire history of DC. They're able to build on what they have, like at the beginning, like the New 52, but continue the stories and adapt them to fit their film universe. And I think they've done a wonderful job.
I agree. Bryan, what do you have to say about Justice League War? You're awfully quiet over there.
Well, I mean, I like the whole Justice League coming together. I mean, I would have kind of rather had Aquaman included in this like he was in the comic. I thought Aquaman with the sharks and, the trident in the comic was pretty sweet. But I did enjoy having Shazam here. I think Shazam gets overlooked so much as a Justice League member and what he can do. And I think having the perspective of a child kind of learning from these heroes is pretty darn sweet. And it kind of makes me look forward to if they ever do another Justice League movie and having Zach Levi's Shazam and part of the team. But I did feel that Darkseid was way too massive. I thought that was pretty crazy. But I like that they incorporated a lot of what Jeff Johns and Jim Lee put together about this team coming together and being able to work together, and Batman kind of being that leader and making the sacrifice to go into the Apokolips and get Superman. And I just think it's a great story. I mean, it is pretty close adaptation of that origin comic. And, it sets the stage for everything.
No.
In Flashpoint though, you kind of it, and also the kind of problem with War is it starts a lot of continuity issues, which we'll get to later when we talk about Bloodlines and when we talk about Judas Contract. But
now, do you know why Shazam is in this movie?
Because he's awesome.
So,
I think they made. Well, go ahead.
Okay, so years ago when this came out, like I talked to Heath Corson, I tweeted him and stuff, the writer, and he was on a panel on the Nerdist Writers Panel podcast, Nerdist, something like that. And what happened was when they started writing Justice League War, at the time is when there was issues with the Schuster estate, and they thought that there was the potential that Warner Brothers could lose the use of Superman. So they started writing and working on this script and designing it and putting this movie together with the idea that there might not be a Superman in the film, and that Shazam would have to be kind of take that part that Superman would have played. And of course that worked out, but they'd already done so much work incorporating Shazam that they left him in, which, like you guys, I would have liked to have seen Aquaman, but I think what they end up doing makes a better story.
I was going to say the same thing. They made the right call on holding Aquaman back for the Throne of Atlantis. They used that shot of the trident and the sharks coming out of the water in Throne of Atlantis. they made the right call on holding him until that movie because it is his story.
Mm-hmm.
So to give him that origin story in that film and not have him be a part of this, it's definitely the right call.
Anything
it would fit to build the universe. There's a lot of things that I liked about War. It's really close to the comic books. Green Lantern and Batman in Gotham. Batman stealing Hal Jordan's ring off of his hand. The battle between Superman and Green Lantern. The ice cream scene with Wonder Woman. The fight between them. Jason O'Mara is damn good as Batman.
So the Wonder Woman ice cream
as an animated,
I think has just become a staple to the character. I was watching DC Superhero Girls with Sayla, and they played off that
Did they?
scene. So yeah, I just feel like
Nice.
that's just a new, like that is now a Wonder Woman staple.
Right.
And they used it in the Wonder Woman film.
Yes, they do. Shamar Moore is Cyborg. He's great.
Yes, he is.
Got a little DC pedigree with Birds of Prey, the television show. He's awesome as Cyborg. I love the way that Cyborg evolves in this.
How he starts out huge and like very like Frankenstein-y, and like he like
how the Prometheum nanites and stuff or whatever, they take the containment unit that he's in and like forge it and transform it into his cyborg body, and how he's huge and massive, and then throughout the film he evolves and he becomes more streamlined.
And I love it. I mean, I like
it's got one of my favorite scenes that I so wanted in the Justice League movie, where a big explosion happens and the Flash zips and hides behind Superman. I could have so seen freaking Ezra Miller do that to Henry Cavill. I wanted that. I expected that, honestly, and I didn't get it. There was a lot we didn't get, but still. So, I think, there's a lot of things they use from this film as they build the universe. I believe that I mentioned it, and I think that's how it was done, was Superman being captured by the parademons and being on Apokolips and being transformed or whatever, I think is how Darkseid created Doomsday for the death of Superman.
Oh,
Boom.
Nice.
Exactly.
So
Nice.
I think that stems from this.
That makes a lot of sense.
I'm so glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm
totally
done.
with you.
There's something else, there's you get Batman stealing the ring in this from Hal Jordan. You get a callback to that in Justice League Dark when he steals the ring from Jon Stewart when he's being possessed and controlled by destiny.
Yes, you do.
Stops him from being able to use his ring by snatching it off his finger too.
Batman is such a G. Such a gangster.
All right. So there might be more stuff that comes up, but we'll keep moving on because we have a lot of things to touch on. Like I said, it's not a full on review of every film. It's just kind of we're talking about the the universe as a whole. So the next film is 2014's Son of Batman, which is based off the Grant Morrison book Batman and Son. Now, I will say, what I find interesting is even though out of the continuity that Batman gets a quote-unquote solo movies, he never gets a solo movie. Like, when it's a Batman film, you always have Nightwing, and you'll have Robin or Nightwing and another member of the Bat family. Like, Batman never gets a straight-on solo adventure. And out of all these, the only one who gets a solo adventure is Wonder Woman. Interesting to think about. This film, Batman and Son, we meet...
Son of Batman.
Son of Batman. That's why I have you here, James. That's why I have you here.
I would say Batman and Son is the name of the book.
We get a quick...
I thought it was Justice League Dark of Batman.
This is... Shut up, Brian. In War, in Justice League War, we get a post-credit scene of Orm rising to seeing all the dead fish and stating that the king is dead. So we get a post-credit scene with Orm in Justice League War, because in Son of Batman, there is no post-credit scene.
No.
But
they have a really cool little tease of the fight between Nightwing and Damian during the credit scene, though. You don't get to see that fight in the movie, but they give you a little bit of it during in flashes during the credits sequence.
So in this film, we get to meet Talia, Ra's al Ghul, who gets killed. So there's a main Batman villain dead. Talia, we get Killer Croc, Man-Bat, we get a Joker tease and a Two-Face tease. We meet Gordon, and Deathstroke is the main villain of this film. This is where we get to meet Damian. And I'll say that Damian has probably one of the best arcs, and probably the strongest arc, even out of all the continuity films.
Oh, holy crap! I'm on the Wikipedia page. So I'm on the Wikipedia page, and I didn't realize it was Thomas Ellis Gibson is the voice of Deathstroke in this, and that's the dude from Dharma and Greg and Criminal Minds.
Yes.
Like, I had no idea. I was like, I knew his voice sounded familiar, but that's not a voice he ever uses either.
No, it still blows my mind.
In live action.
Every time I look at that's him, because later when Deathstroke reappears, he's voiced by Miguel Ferrer.
So much better. I like Thomas Gibson, but Miguel Ferrer did it so much better.
Which Miguel Ferrer has DC pedigree, being the voice of Aquaman in the one episode Aquaman appears in Superman the Animated Series, and he was the villain.
And he's Vandal. He's Vandal Savage in Young Justice.
He's Vandal Savage in Young Justice. He's also the villain in the unaired Justice League pilot from the late 90s.
Oh, really?
And here's a side note about him that blew my mind. I don't know if either of you guys are like, I love old movies, and one of my favorite movies at Christmas is White Christmas, okay? And if anyone's familiar with that film, it has Rosemary Clooney in it. Rosemary Clooney, of course, is the aunt to George Clooney, but Miguel Ferrer is Rosemary Clooney's son. And that, like, blew my mind. Like, I was like, whoa.
I did not know that.
I was like, oh my gosh. I stumbled upon that this year, and I was like, oh my gosh. It kind of just like, and we'd also like to extend our condolences because Miguel Ferrer just recently passed in the past couple of years. So,
yeah. We got Sean Mayer as Nightwing in this, Firefly and Serenity. He also was on the Arrowverse. He was on the Arrow show as who was he?
Squad episode.
Yeah,
but he wasn't anyone really important.
Yeah,
like one of those like
we got
beats.
Yeah. God, I now it's bugging me who he played. Marina Baccarin is Talia al Ghul
from Firefly, and later was in
Firefly. Would
be in Gotham.
And Deadpool and
Leslie Tompkins, which still makes no sense.
Right.
But so Damian has basically a 5-film arc, if you think about it. And that means he has more of a story arc than anybody else in these continuity films. Just think about that.
And it's the same kid who's played him the entire time. I wonder if he's actually playing him in Apokolips War as well.
I'm pretty sure he is. Stuart Allen, I'm pretty sure he is. Because I'll take the voice aging up. Just keep the same actor.
Right. He's the reason his Damian is the reason that this is probably my least favorite film. Just because I want to choke the hell out of that little kid. Yes. Like, he is so insufferable, such a spoiled little brat. And, it carries through Son of Batman, Batman versus Robin, and it's let up actually a little bit in Bad Blood, but then it's right back again in Justice League versus Teen Titans.
But his Damian is why I like Damian, because.
I think he's great as him, because he's such an insufferable little bastard.
Yes. When you see the arc,
that's why I love him.
Now, one of the biggest things I want to point out about this film is we meet Talia in this movie, and she's completely different the next time we meet her. And what I have in my notes is Talia gets shot and pretty much almost dies and goes into the Lazarus pit. So when she returns next from the Lazarus pit, I was trying to figure out, why is she basically evil when she comes back? I'm saying because of the Lazarus pit.
Because of the Lazarus pit, dude. It drives people insane.
Yeah.
And I do want to point out Batman's costume in this film is a little bit more blue. It's a little bit more blue than it is the black and the gray that we had in War.
So you speaking of Talia and Batman, it's very interesting how, because from my understanding, the incident that creates Damian, their romantic entanglement. In the original story, from what I understand, it was more of a romantic, consensual thing. From Grant Morrison's story, Batman and Son, which I have heard recently, is that he misinterpreted it and went off of memory to write the story where Batman was drugged and he gave in because he was drugged. I like in this movie where they actually combine the two, where Batman has love for Talia, but she also influenced him, drugged him and influenced him to have their entanglement.
I do too.
So post-crisis, there is a story kind of right around when Jason Todd is about to come in. It's called Birth of the Demon. And I think it was originally published as actually a legend story, but it talks about the possibility of Batman and Talia kind of having a romance and having a kid. But it wasn't considered originally as canon, if I remember right. It was called Birth of the Demon. And then eventually Grant Morrison goes back to that story when he does his Batman and Son arc, and he's like, you know what? We're just going to give Batman a kid. And he pulls that story from the mid-'80s, and then he just works off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And builds off of it, and their love, and Ra's al Ghul's wants of Batman to replace him and be a successor, and his respect for Batman, and that's why he calls him detective, and yada yada. That's kind of where Batman and Son came from, borrowing off that story called Birth of the Demon.
And Grant Morrison is one of the writers who basically says everything counts, everything matters. And tries to make everything work. The dude is too
and that's
smart.
why he's so good.
his stuff is like stuff you read and then you have to reread it at least twice, I think, to get everything, because sometimes it's just so big.
Yeah, and the threads they're not straight. They're intertwined and they go back and forth. They go backward and forward. So, like his stories aren't linear all the time either.
This is true.
Look at his run on Action in the New 52.
Which I'm currently...
I was reading it issue to issue, back to back, and I was still like, what the heck is going on here? Until I got to the last issue where it started to wrap up, and I was like, oh, now it makes sense. I'm like, now I have to go back and read his run again just so I know how it fits together, and then I can understand it better. Like,
one thing that helped me is when I listened to him talk about how you interact fourth or fifth dimensionally, as he explained it to Kevin Smith on his podcast. And I was like, okay, makes sense.
Well, I might have to find that one.
The old good back when it was really good.
When Morrison writes something, like Morrison wrote Batman Prey, Batman Venom, and there were some legend titles in the 80s too. That's kind of what started. Morrison is probably one of my favorite Batman writers, other than Jeff Loeb.
Well, he wrote Final Crisis.
I need to reread Final Crisis.
Me too.
You do. But Morrison was writing that because Final Crisis was going into his Batman Rest in Peace story. So it was kind of all flowing together. But Morrison, when he went back on the Batman, and he was doing Batman Rest in Peace, and he was doing Batman Son and the Black Dove and all that stuff, he had this whole entire plan of every single thing was going to tie together and put it all together. And I just respect writers like that aren't just throwing like caution in the wind. They're like, okay, what story do I want to tell? This is my ending. This is where I'm going to go. And Morrison is just, man, he's awesome. But enough about Morrison. How about these movies?
So anything else you guys want to touch on for this one?
I don't think so, because I think it's. Does Nightwing show up in Batman versus Robin?
Yep, Nightwing is in every one of the Batman.
Yes.
Stories.
Okay. I thought so. Because I think it's that one. I don't think it's this one. I think it's that one where maybe it's it might be Bad Blood. I don't know. Yeah, they have a touch expanding the universe where he is on the phone with Corey, and he's in a relationship with Corey.
That's coming up.
I know it's in one of the three. It's either in Batman versus Robin, or it's in Bad Blood.
I will say that poor Nightwing gets jacked up in every movie. Like, he gets like beat up in every movie. So, like I said, no post-credit scene for this one. And our next film is 2015's Justice League Thrones of Atlantis. This film combines elements from the New 52 first volume of Aquaman and heavily from the third volume of the Justice League of the New 52, which is entitled Thrones of Atlantis. This is our origin film, really, for Aquaman, and it's very Aquaman-centered, which is great. This is where we get what we were talking about. This is where Jerry O'Connell comes in as Superman, and Nathan Fillion shows up as Green Lantern, and we get Rosario Dawson as Wonder Woman.
Which she's done better. She did better than Michelle Monaghan. I don't know. Michelle Monaghan, I think she was given a a bit of a wrong direction when it came to her acting. She she's just so like over the top and I don't know. I don't want to say Shakespearean, but
no, I totally get it. I know exactly what you're trying to say.
Yeah, just like she comes from an old movie about ancient Greece or something. Just some kind of
which would have worked in parts of Bloodlines.
Right.
Not to jump ahead yet, but like where that story goes and comes from, but not here. Or not in War. We should have been past that. I do want to point out this film, okay? This is where we get Superman and Diana's relationship starting, and they do the famous New 52 Superman and Wonder Woman dating, but we do get Lois Lane in this film. And it does plant a little bit of a seed that Clark does have some sort of feelings towards Lois. We meet Sam Lane. We meet John Henry Irons on a construction site in this film.
Woohoo! So we meet Shaquille O'Neal?
No, we don't talk about that right now, Brian.
All right, we just lost Brian. Click.
Well, guys, I had a good run.
And
it's been a pleasure. I'm going to go watch Kazam.
And we do get Shazam in this movie.
You're so tired in the morning.
I said Kazam.
Go to sleep early. Stop talking to people. Stop.
Shazam is back in this movie. Brian, do you know that?
Yeah, Kazam. Yeah.
This is Shaquille O'Neal. No, we're not talking about that. This is Shazam's last movie.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He completely
wait.
He completely drops out.
Doesn't he show back up at the death of Superman?
No.
Sitting at the table and they're talking about like the fiscal year of the Justice League?
Nope. That's in this one. That's in this film.
That is in that one? Mm-hmm. Okay, I messed that up then. Wait a second.
No, that's referenced. Hold on one second. It's referenced in Death of Superman. But yeah, Shazam's not there. Martian Manhunter.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Isn't Hawkman in the background of that meeting too?
Yeah, we'll get there. There's a lot of characters that get introduced along the way without actually being set up. But Shazam just disappears. Yeah. This is his last movie appearance. And I haven't found anything that states that they were prepping him for his own movie or anything like that. He just doesn't show up again.
Doesn't Hal Jordan disappear after this movie for a while?
For a little bit.
As well, with no explanation?
But
except for the fact that there's a different Green Lantern there. That's it. So from between Justice League Throne of Atlantis, the next time we see Green Lantern, it's Jon Stewart in Justice League Dark.
Yep. So Shazam definitely gets shortchanged from the whole series.
And then Hal is back in Death of Superman.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the John Henry Irons, his story in Thrones of Atlantis does match what he says later when he's introduced as a full character. Because I looked for that little bit of connective tissue to make sure that it lined up correctly. And then Thrones of Atlantis also has a post-credit scene where Orm is in jail and Lex shows up.
Yes.
To
we gotta talk about that.
To recruit Orm for the Legion of Doom, but Orm never shows up again.
Yeah, which we didn't bring up.
But the Legion of Doom does.
Harry Lennox is Black Manta in this movie, and Sam Witwer, Agent Liberty, is Ocean Master.
He's not just Agent Liberty, James. He is
not just Bloom. Agent. Yes, he is Doomsday. He is Davis Bloom. He is Agent Liberty. He is Aiden from.
He is Darth Maul.
He's Darth Maul.
He's a great actor.
He's also Vader's apprentice.
Star Killer.
Yeah.
But the one thing about this, like, okay, if we look at Aquaman the film, Orm is an interesting villain in that film because he's not completely a villain. He's a villain with misguidedness, but this Orm in this movie is completely evil. This dude,
he uses the
evil.
Yeah, he uses the fact that his father died to push his agenda of destroying the surface world. Just because he's evil, he just wants to destroy them. He kills his mother in this movie, like runs her through, kills his mother in this movie, and it was an alien invasion on the planet that did it. It had nothing to do with a surface war, except for the fact that surface heroes were involved. Like the war would have decimated Atlantis along with the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
So like it literally had nothing to do with like surface dwellers fighting wars against each other and Atlantis being collateral damage. Atlantis was indirectly targeted just being on Earth in the invasion.
He just used it as a way to get what he wanted.
Because that's what villains do, buddy.
Yup. Until they're beheaded by Lady Shiva. Sorry. Dude, spoilers for Young Justice.
That was one of my favorite. I had to watch that like 3 times. But we're going to bring up Young Justice later. Because I'll just bring it up now. You brought it up. I'll mention it. And I have a section here in my notes just called Overarching Universe Notes. The animation style slowly starts to change in these films. We see a little bit of a shift here and there as they go compared to what it started out with Justice League War. Even though they're continuity and it's the same, there are little shifts. You see it with Superman, especially when we get to Death of Superman. If you look,
I'm sure there's different artists who have ended up working on these films over the last 7 years.
And in Bloodlines. But if you look at the models of these characters, this same art house that does these started producing Young Justice Season 3.
Oh, nice.
So if you watch Young Justice Season 3 and look like Batwoman's appearance, Batman's appearance, and some of the other characters, it's the same base models and art for these films. Like, so it gets a little blurry at times. Because the art starts to kind of reflect. If you watch Young Justice Season 3 and then go back and look at Season 1, you can see difference in the art.
Mm-hmm. In the Young Justice world, it seems more like Batman Under the Red Hood fits into the Young Justice world
in Season
than
1, I would
the
say
rest
yes.
of these.
By Season 3, it's different. But in Season 1 of Young Justice, I would agree with you. Not just because Bruce Greenwood is Batman, who is my second favorite Batman voice. But that's a whole nother conversation. I also want to point out, though, out of these total 15 films, 12 of these 15 films is scored by Frederick Wiedemann. So there is musical connections throughout these films because we have the same composer working on them. But is there anything else you'd like to add about Thrones of Atlantis? I mean, this really is an Aquaman-centered film that, you know, like you said, we meet Black Manta, we meet Orm, we meet the Trench, we get Professor Shin.
Black Manta is short-lived in this one. He hasn't returned yet that I'm aware of.
He has not? Hold
because
on, one other time, I think. Hold on, I think I got it in my notes. I think
because he wasn't with the Legion of Doom.
Because
he got ate by a shark.
He pops up and is referenced in Hell to Pay. He's like
he pops up.
Yeah, because he's voiced by Dave. Feeney in Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. It's a very small part.
Okay. He must have escaped that.
Yeah, correct.
Right. He must have escaped that shark's belly.
All right. So we're going to move on to 2015's Batman versus Robin. Now, this film, the first time I watched it, I didn't like it.
It's a good one.
First time I watched it, I didn't like it. And do you know why I didn't like it, James or Brian? Take a quick guess.
Batman versus Robin?
Really, no, I think I think that you really love the Court of Owls. And I think that you judged it too harshly because it wasn't maybe what you expected or what you saw in your mind.
Well, from what I've heard, because I haven't read that yet, I haven't read The Court of Owls. I haven't read The Night of Owls from the New 52. So I hear that it's fantastic work by Scott Snyder, and the other people who worked on the other Bat books that were involved in the entire thing. And I have not read it yet. So my introduction to The Court of Owls was this movie, and I thought they were pretty cool. I thought the tail end was pretty awesome.
And Brian, you're absolutely right. Because if you read the New 52, the first
I know
two
you,
volumes,
buddy. I know you.
Read the first 2 volumes of Batman and the first 2 volumes of Nightwing. You have to have both to really get the full scope of the Court of Owls. And the whole Nightwing story that made the Court of Owls even more powerful is completely absent. Like, I like the idea of this film. Like, I like the story of Talon pulling Robin. I like that. I'm okay with that. But I
think that was their loose connection to what they had with the Nightwing part of the story. Because I did read a handful of issues from the beginning of New 52 from Nightwing a while back before DC Universe and everything like that. So I was getting into that part, and I was reading that side of the story, and that was pretty awesome.
But it just
okay. So you did get, like, you know how Nightwing ties into the court. Like, you know that much, at least.
Yeah, I read like the first 7 or 8 issues of New 52 Nightwing.
Okay, and so that's Tyler and I have talked about this a good bit because Nightwing should have been more of a part of this story than Damian, and that's kind of what disappointed us totally. Absolutely.
I agree, because that part of the story, those books were really good from Nightwing.
I feel like the Batman versus Robin story is great, but maybe instead of using the Talon, they could have done another character. And I just feel like the court deserved a better film. Now, upon years of pulling myself out and just watching it as a film, it is a really good movie. You know, just watching it as Damian's arc and a pivotal point in his story, to where at the end of this film, Damian decides to go off to the Himalayas, and Bruce has to, have this moment with his son, and just where that puts him, it's good. Like, Batman and Damian struggle, like at the beginning where Dollmaker kills, or Talon kills Dollmaker, which Dollmaker was creepy as can be.
Voiced by Weird Al Yankovic, apparently.
Yes. And then I did put in this one, James, like you and I were talking, I did make a note that this one did have a new Batmobile.
It did, which, so Son of Batman had a Batmobile. This one had a different Batmobile. And then when we go to Bad Blood, it's back to the original Batmobile. And when you go to Justice League Dark, it is the same Batmobile. So this is the only film with a different Batmobile.
Also, in this movie, there's a Batwoman tease that I didn't pick up until I watched it this time. When Bruce is having the vision of Damian being like taking over, and like the whole like psychotropic dream thing that he has about Damian killing him, like burning the city. When you look around, all like the Batman allies are dead, Batwoman is there.
And the bodies.
So that is. Oh, I didn't catch that. The Court of Owls. So, like I said, I haven't read. So, the Court of Owls is one reason why I like this movie, and then also that dream sequence from Batman, and that story is in the trade of Batman and Son, as more of I don't know what it is, if it's like a possible future or something, or what. I don't know exactly what it is, because it seems out of place.
Well, it is out of place.
In the book. That was actually it was like a possible future, because that issue that you're talking about was issue Batman 666.
Oh, that makes sense. So, I think they tied that issue into this movie really well as some sort of nightmare scenario that he hallucinates.
Yes.
No, I agree completely.
I think it did really well. I liked it.
I do want to throw this out there for everyone who's listening. I watched all the films in order, but I did flip 2 films. I did watch Justice League and then Justice League Thrones of Atlantis back to back, so I could watch the Batman films linearly. And it really does play out really well if you watch Son of Batman, into Batman versus Robin, into Bad Blood, and then into the Teen Titans versus Justice League. Because you see Damian's
and then Judas Contract.
Yeah, you see Damian's arc stronger, and there's a lot of other connective tissue that you see. Like when we get
that's the way I watch them too.
I
go War, Throne of Atlantis, and then it goes straight into Batman's.
Yeah, you told me that, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really cool." So I watched it that way. This watch through,
and I like that. It also is cool because I feel like you also get more of the Justice League story by putting those 2 Justice League films back to back. How War ends, where they're like, "Oh, we're the Super 7," because Shazam, they're not really together, and then of course in Thrones of Atlantis. It picks up, and they're still not quite the Justice League yet. But I did find this movie, though, odd that we get a random woman that's like dating / courting Bruce, that we had not met, seen, and she's kind of just one and done.
Yeah, I don't think she was ever in the comics either.
I did like the twist that she was the Grand Master of the Court of Owls.
That was nice. So, like in the well, no, I don't want to ruin the comic for James, but I was trying to remember. Yeah, the Grandmaster in the comic was somebody he knew too, right? It was like someone on the board or something. I don't know.
It is. There's also a whole nother like thing in the Court of Owls that comes out, which actually comes to fruition more in the end of Batman Eternal. Which Batman Eternal is a really cool story.
Yeah.
It starts off good and ends good, but in the middle it gets so just mucky because they tried to do it for 52 issues, like as a weekly book, and it just was a story they should have just done as a shorter volume because it was just so stretched out.
Well, wasn't Eternal done during Zero Year? And that's why that was really confusing for me.
I have a theory.
What was in? Go ahead.
Scott Snyder's Batman. Like, I feel like everything he did except maybe All-Star Batman is connected. Like, I feel like he had these ideas for the Court of Owls, the Death of the Family, 0 Year, Eternal, and then Metal, and then where he is now with like Dark Metal and all that stuff. I really feel like he had all this kind of planned out, and even his last night on Earth. But because the way DC was moving, they're like, "Oh, we got to do this faster." So while he was doing 0 Year, and I think they decided to do what would have been his next plot line as Eternal to get that story out faster, because they were heading towards this event, this story down the line. Because if you read 0 Year, and then you like, because Eternal picks up threads that are hanging from the Court of Owls and really caps off the Court of Owls story. And then you see the threads in in Scott Snyder's Endgame pick back up in Last Night on Earth. So it really feels like all his Batman's kind of connected, but he had to spread it out in these different ways because of how DC kept cranking and changing and moving and Event Book and Rebirth and all this, that he didn't have time to really do his Batman the way he wanted to do.
Makes sense. I do want to read his stuff from the beginning of New 52 all the way up, because I read all of his Justice League, and I read all of his Last Night on Earth. So I've got a bunch of stuff there, and when I was reading through Superman and Action, I got to 0 Year, and kind of during my read through, like I told you before, Tyler, when I'm going through and I hit like a storyline like that, like I kind of just pause on that run that I'm reading, and then I read that whole storyline. For the most part, I read for the most part of the storylines that I've run into. Like I read through all of Superman, and I didn't touch Convergence. Like Convergence is got to be its own thing. There's so many books there.
Yeah, like I want to go back and reread Convergence. I know we're kind of getting off topic a little here, but yeah, I do want to go back and read Convergence just because I am rereading stuff, and that's where it gets mucky with where Superman comes into play and then how Rebirth works. So I am going to reread Convergence probably here soon, just because I have been doing so much rereading with this extra time I have at work because business gets slow. So I do want to point out some quick notes about the universe. One, we never get a Green Arrow. We get a Speedy tease, but we never get Green Arrow.
Yeah, that is very disappointing.
We never get Supergirl, and Flash gets shortchanged. Like, he never gets more than just the Justice League appearances.
Yep.
And it really bums me out. Now, our next film is Bad Blood. And I'm going to let James, you take over and introduce Bad Blood real quick. Start the conversation.
So, okay. Bad Blood is a story where Batman disappears. We get the introduction of Batwoman, Kate Kane, and Batman she's involved in trying to stop some people, and Batman during an altercation gets blown up and disappears and is gone for weeks, and Nightwing steps in to take his place because Gotham without Batman tends to go down the crapper, fall apart. Yep. And so this movie is where like the Bat family expands from just Nightwing and Damian Wayne and Alfred.
And I like
Nightwing is here, and he takes the mantle of the Bat. Damian returns from the Himalayas. Nightwing allows Batwoman to join them, and they introduce Luke Fox as Batwing.
And I like that. I like that we got kind of this fresh character of Luke Fox, because we haven't seen him in anything else.
Yeah, I don't think we see him ever again, do we?
Nope.
This is his only appearance.
Or do we see him in the teaser for Justice League Dark Apokolips War Esquire?
I don't know, because I've only watched the teaser once, because I kind of want to just go into the film a little bit more, and we'll talk about that when we review that. But yeah, as far as Batwoman as well, this is her one and done.
Right.
We do get, so this movie's where Talia returns, and she is evil. We get more Batman villains. We meet Tusk, Electrocutioner, Firefly, Copperhead, and of course the Heretic. I thought the Heretic was awesome. They used him in this.
Should have been Jason Todd.
So in my recollection, there was in that Batman and Son book, I believe it was that book, there were like a number of different Batman type characters. Am I recalling that correctly? And the Heretic was one of them.
I don't.
But he
remember.
was less of a.
Let me pull it off the shelf here. Hold on.
He was less of a character because there was like 3 different Batman type characters. There was one who was like a Bane, like huge type character, and then there was one like the Heretic, and then I can't remember the third one.
See, I just remember the Heretic from later when he actually killed Damian in Batman Incorporated.
Yeah, I don't recall the Heretic being in Batman and Son.
I know there was a story I read that there was like 3
Sensei or something.
There is a Bane.
No.
I know what you're talking about. Like, I got the book out. There is like a Bane type looking Batman-esque character in later in one of the books that's attached here. But I don't know if it's
I can't. Right, I can't recall. It's been so long since I picked that book up. I can't remember because the only time I read that book was when I got it because I won it at like a trivia thing before The Dark Knight Rises. So that's as long as ago since I've read the book. So it's pure memory from that point. I know I'm pretty positive there was like 3 different types of characters. One was like massive.
Okay. In part 5 of the story, there is a giant guy with a bat hood beating the crap out of Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I have not read this in a long time. Hold on. The locker room smells so thick in here, it's like weather. Makes me think of board meetings, the stock exchange, executive washrooms. It's testosterone, alpha male hormone. I guess I'll have to take their word for it. And then, but he doesn't look like much of a cop. And this giant guy that looks like Bane, and he's wearing like a little tank top that has a little bat symbol on it. This guy's huge.
Yeah, and I don't see his name actually being used. And maybe it is like a...
No, I don't recall names of these characters.
Maybe it is like a pre-Heretic. Because I remember when the Heretic actually shows up. I have the Death of Robin book somewhere. It's in my long boxes.
Okay.
But of course,
we do. I couldn't place the voice for the longest, but we got Ernie Hudson as Lucius Fox,
which is awesome. My favorite Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think it's just a member of a Talia hit squad trying to take him down.
Well, what I can recall is those characters were clones of Damien, like the Heretic.
Yeah.
Is those characters were, force-grown clones of Damien, and they were just used to go after Bruce. That was about it. That's about all I can recall.
Yeah, you're right.
Once again, Nightwing gets beat up in this movie. Talia is left for dead. We think she dies. It's kind of one of those explodes over this ocean. The Mad Hatter is dead.
Rightfully so, though. Batman beats the crap out of Nightwing.
Yes. The Heretic is dead. The Mad Hatter is dead. The Penguin is teased. We do get Black Mask. In this film,
which actually in this we get a version of the accident that forces his face to be scarred, because he actually has just the black mask on in this movie, and what happens with Robin. He does something and he causes the weapon to backfire and like incinerate the mask around Black Mask's head.
Isn't this also the one where we get a Mazo? Or was that in Batman vs. No, that was in this one, right?
A Mazo?
Yeah, which one was that in? Am I writing it wrong?
Under the Red Hood?
No, I thought, okay, you're right. It wasn't Under the Red Hood.
It's a Red Hood.
Although this dock is used in multiple, that same dock yard is used in multiple Batman DC properties. It's used in Young Justice. This exact same dock.
And
it's used in Under the Red Hood. It's used in this movie. It's used in Young Justice.
See, I put here that there's a line of dialogue in this that says Chucky's soul, a member of Black Mask's gang. And the only time I've ever heard Chucky's soul was in Mask of the Phantasm. I thought that was a cool nod. Like I said, Talia is
Angel
evil
of Death awaits.
in this. We do get a stinger at the end where Batgirl shows up. This is Batgirl's kind of tease and appearance. I do kind of wish it had been Red Hood that showed up at the end of this film as a tease, instead of it being the stinger being Batgirl. Because when
that being a stinger, she's used very little in the universe moving forward, because she only shows up as a cameo in Hush.
Yes. She was one of those characters that I expected something more from, because they also, they've done retconning in the comics that her quote unquote Burnside Batgirl outfit was her first original Batgirl outfit. And that's what we see her appear in, which, if you're thinking of it we're talking about change, that Batgirl outfit took place in the DCU, which is YOU, when they did their little soft reboot in the middle of the New 52, where they all of a sudden, somehow Barbara was a 30-some-year-old woman to all of a sudden now being a 19-year-old girl. It was supposed to be the same character. If you read the New 52 Batgirl books, it's all post-Oracle. Then all of a sudden, when we get to the Burnside stuff, it's like a completely different Batgirl. And there was nothing good that came from the DCU. That's why we need to read it.
So this movie here makes me want to. What is it? Is it Morrison, Batman and Robin? Is that who it is? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Where Nightwing is Batman and Damian is Robin.
It is Morrison's Batman and Robin. I actually reread a good chunk of that recently when I went on my Red Hood kick and read all of the major Red Hood story arcs. Because I
heard that was really good. I want to read that too.
It is really good. The whole run is really good. This film, if you're looking at comic book inspiration, comes from that Morrison arc and also the Battle for the Cowl, because there's elements from that. Another character that never appears in the universe is Huntress. As we were discussing characters that never came to fruition, we never got a Huntress appear. Now, this movie is more Batwoman's vehicle. I am not a fan of this movie's title. I kind of get where it's coming from, but I don't like it. Any other comments on?
No, that's about all I got on Bad Blood, I think.
Yeah. All right. So we're
moving on.
We're now at 2016's Justice League versus the Teen Titans. This film opens where the Justice League is battling the Legion of Doom. So we have Lex in the Lex suit. We have Solomon Grundy.
With no Ocean Master.
Cheetah, no Ocean Master, Toy Master, and Weather Wizard.
So I was thinking, because it'd been a while since I had watched this movie, I forgot that it opened with the battle against the Legion of Doom and that Lex Luthor was a part of it. And now, after I watched it, as soon as it came on and Lex was there, I was like, oh, that's why he's under house arrest in the Death of Superman.
Right. And yes.
Yes, exactly.
Also, like you said earlier, James, in the last film in Bad Blood is when we have a conversation with Nightwing talking to Corey. over the phone. And he's talking to Corey, and he says, "I have to go, family emergency." So she is teased in that film. And then we meet Corey in Justice League versus Teen Titans. This one is... We also get the Atomic Skull, as far as villains go. Let's see. Trigon being the overarching villain of this film. I actually really like
is Brother Blood in this one?
No, he's in Judas.
Brother Blood comes in Judas. Yes, right.
Yeah, he's in Judas Contract. Of the two films with the Teen Titans, they are both really good. I do like this. I do like this one. I think their Raven storyline is good. Really like good, I said, Damian Wayne's little bastard personality is in full effect again here. But it does him good to be.
This is where he gets put in his place.
Yes, he does get put in his place, and I like that Blue Beetle does it. The Scarab, because Damian thinks he's big and bad. Like he thinks that he is a living weapon and he can't be stopped. And me. And the Blue Beetle, the Scarab, in defending itself and being annoyed at Damian Wayne's jackassery, he blasts him and nearly kills him, and it puts him in his place.
And his Raven serves him right. And this is like I said, when you watch in line and you see Damian's arc, this is probably the most pivotal film. In this film, we meet Blue Beetle, who's playing kind of the role of Cyborg in the Teen Titans, because Cyborg being right now a member of the Justice League. We have Raven. We have Starfire, who we do have the Teen Titans dynamic, where you have Dick Grayson, who was once a Teen Titan, as Nightwing.
I do like you did bring up Cyborg. I do like Cyborg in this movie because they give him a callback, because he went straight to the Justice League, but they reach back. He's still a young man, Yep. He's probably he was looking to go to college.
So I put him
in Justice League War. So yeah, he was like a senior. He was like 18. So however long it takes, he went from being an 18-year-old teenager to running with the Justice League. It's nice for him to have, and that's why he connected with Shazam, because he was a younger man. And it's nice of him to have people his own age in this film, and that's kind of why he rolls with the Teen Titans and why he shows up at the end with the Boom Tube Pizza, 30 seconds or less.
We do get a mention.
That sounds pretty good.
I know, right? Good. I'm like in the mood. We do get a mention of Kahndaq City in this film when they're talking about finding pieces to build the portal to bring Trigon. Trigon, voiced by John Barenthal, Shane from The Walking Dead, or the Punisher.
The Punisher.
I do love Raven in this movie. I do love her story and just how we see how powerful she is, but how strong she is. The part I think that's great in this is when she talks about what she did and how Trigon killed and came to Azarath. And they're like, well, where is Azarath? And she's like,
that's fantastic.
She's like, we're there right now. And when they have to go to the Hell Dimension to stop Trigon, and Damian's like, no, we're going to go with you. And,
I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but Taysa Farmiga or whatever. Taysa.
Yeah.
I love her. She's amazing. She's awesome. I love her in American Horror Story. And just her voice is perfect for Raven. I'm so glad she's going to be back again in Justice League Dark.
The only thing is, she's the sister to Vera Farmiga, and they put her in The Nun, which is connected to The Conjuring, but yet they didn't make the characters related. That annoyed me. Because they look so much alike. but that's just me. But yeah, I do like.
Yeah, I was glad to see her in The Nun.
I do like that. We have Damian coming into his own, because one of the best scenes is when he says, we have Batman, Wonder Woman, and Flash, and Superman being possessed by these Trigon demons, and Damian says, "Father," and everyone's like, "Father," and they look at Damian standing up to Batman, and they're like, "Whoa."
And then when Beast Boy is like, "What he's like, what? You have a way to take out Superman?" And he just gives him this over the shoulder grin. He's like, "I think he does."
And this movie does end with the tease of Terra showing up, which is important. So, anything else on Justice League versus Teen Titans?
I think it's, for having the two films being focused on the Teen Titans, it's really good because it shows the family dynamic between all of the characters, how they're there for each other no matter what. Like, they don't know anything about Raven. They're there for her. Blue Beetle, they don't know how dangerous he is, that kind of thing. And then, in and in this, Corey's idea that she gets from Nightwing to help the team bond is literally fun. They go to a carnival. And it's, that's how teenagers, how kids would get to know each other, get to bond, not through training and stuff, but like actually getting to be themselves in a regular setting. And then we get some stuff like that in the other Teen Titans Judas Contract, when they have a birthday party, an anniversary party for Terra. And they just get to be friends, So they did a really good job of getting what. Now, I've never read like the new Teen Titans, like the original Judas Contract, but I heard that run was I heard that run was a lot about the family dynamic, the friendships, not just the action, but the dynamics between the characters. And they really put that into these two movies. And I think that's something that they're playing up in the Titan show on DC Universe, but maybe too much.
Now, I will say, in chronological order, the next film, if you're following along, is Justice League Dark. But I kind of want to stay on the Teen Titans right now and just talk about Judas Contract. And that's where we're going to put a pin in this episode. So the next one picks up right there where we broke the conversation. So if you haven't seen the films, you get a chance to catch up with us. And we'll catch you next time.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look in the sky.